Welcome. This is AllMinucOne Quick Shots. So, folks, I thought today, being a Monday, that is November 9th, we talk about some of the things going on right now in the news and the idea that Joe Biden is the president-elect, or at least as the media would put it, because they do not determine the election, and the election isn't over. In fact, the election won't be over technically until December 14th, if I'm not mistaken. And if you recall, back in 2002, way back when, the whole Bush v. Gore thing went on, it was December 12th before everything was said and done and decided, even though the election took place on November 7th. But we cannot discount the possibility. However it happened, whether it was fraud or legitimate, Joe Biden is projected to be the new president. And we have to consider what that would look like. What will it be like if he is the president? Well, first off, I think you can kiss goodbye any anti-globalist strides that Donald Trump has made over the last 4 years. I think we will be entering trade concessions again, which do not benefit America, but benefit other nations. This is very likely to happen because this is essentially the policies of the Council of Foreign Relations, which Joe Biden is quite cozy with, and if I'm not mistaken, a member of. In fact, the whole Ukraine gate scenario where supposedly Trump was saying a quid pro quo, which didn't really exist. All he was saying is, hey, could you please look into this thing for me? Said nothing about keeping money away from the Ukraine. In fact, I recall listening to this very specifically. I listened to the whole recording on my way to the airport to pick up my wife. She was returning from a business trip. And I saw nothing. But then we have Joe Biden at the Council of Foreign Relations on film saying, yeah, I told him, if you don't fire that guy from investigating Burisma, then you're out $1 billion. And they're like, well, you can't do that. He's like, call the president. And then he goes, well, son of a gun. Guess what? They fired him. And of course, we know that his son was involved with that company and whatever else. And the whole thing's shady. And that's just how it works, folks. This is the reality of politics. This is why I liked and endorsed Donald Trump, because did he do private deals all over the world? Absolutely. Was it using his office as a means of power? No. And if you look into what Bob Alinsky said about the Bidens, about Joe's brother and Hunter, they're not very serious business people. And we know, we can look back on when Biden was elected vice president in 2008, he had a net worth of $37,000. That is according to CBS. So this is a guy that had spent 40 years in politics, nearly, was his state senator, and had acquired almost no wealth. And in fact, Joe was largely picked because of that, because he was seen as working class Joe. Of course, Trump called him out on this here in the last debates. But what is the point to all this that I'm bringing up here? What is really what this is about? Well, Joe's going to make whatever deals benefit him and his family, and whatever deals benefit him and his cronies, his buddies, and it's going to be business as usual. We're going to return to the years of Barack Obama and George W. Bush, and if you look at who finances them, who provides the campaign contributions, it is the same people. They are hedging their bets because the government is going only in one direction. And that is to grow bigger, to be less personal towards you, and to be more authoritarian. That is what is going to continue to happen. We can expect to see an escalation of war in the Middle East somewhere, maybe with Iran. Iran isn't really the nation that they've been trying to go after, although they want to go after it. They know it's pretty much impossible militarily. But they will most likely go after Syria, as it has been on their map for a long time. Let's recall, under Obama, Syria was a big issue. Libya was absolutely destroyed. Yes, did we pull some troops out of Iraq? Yes, but we didn't stop operations there, nor in Afghanistan. But what we did do is we left gear and things behind to bolster up ISIS, which shouldn't have never been an issue if you use proper military tactics. And I can tell you, as a former infantry marine, that there is a lot of politics within the tactics in which you were taught. You can go in and you can mess stuff up, or you can play patty cake with your enemy, which is what we've been doing at least since Vietnam and perhaps prior during the Korean War. So we're going to see this again. And the reason why we do these things is because it keeps the regions destabilized. And it creates a purpose for the United States to go in. Now, one of the biggest failings of Trump is that he did not get rid of these neocons and war hawks out. In fact, he brought in John Bolton, which was ridiculous, even though he did not keep him long. But that's because the Washington machine is the Washington machine. Recall that CNN and other outlets made a huge deal about Trump taking a few troops out of Germany and redistributing them to other NATO nations, as if Germany does not have one of the largest GDPs in the world to include within Europe and is not capable of defending itself against Russia, which is still a rising economic power since its collapse within the Soviet Union, that is, in the early 1990s. And they've been figuring out this mixture of capitalism and socialism that they've been trying to play out with for years. But the reality is that the average standard of living for Russians has raised tremendously, because that is what happens when you open up markets to be free. And what we'll see here in America, I'm more than certain, is a lack of support for the working class. Biden and Harris will say things about the unions. They'll have whatever platitudes, but it won't be anything solid. There won't be tax breaks and deals and things for manufacturers to come back and laws that allow them essentially to be competitive with the rest of the world, because we'll be in these other trade deals. Now, the other big thing that we're really going to see is the ramping up of intersectionality again. Now, if you recall appropriately, this thing did not exist under the Bush years and started under the Obama years. Part of it is because of the internet generation. There is no doubt about that. But the other part of it was a sympathetic rhetoric that was being espoused via the Democrats, because the Democrats really, in the long run, maybe not all of them, but just the party as a whole, what they want is absolute one party power and control over the United States, and they want to be able to essentially dictate everything that you do. And the best form of that to happen is a form of, fascism, a form of communistic takeover. And that's what we're looking at here. Now, it will be a long time. And fortunately, with the races being so close and tied up, the House and the Senate will provide some opposition. But it doesn't mean that they won't get things through. And we still, at this time, don't know about the Senate seat in Georgia. Another thing that we'll see is the implementation and institution of these intersectional laws via federal government. We saw this under the Obama administration. Also recall that it was under the Obama administration that Occupy Wall Street came about, that Black Lives Matter came about, that Antifa rose up. Sorry, folks, if I'm misspeaking here a little bit. But Antifa rose up under Obama. They became prominent under Trump because of the narrative. And the narrative is quite strange, to be honest. But people are gullible. People are quite gullible. Look, there are people right now going around saying that there is no proof of election fraud, and we don't have to worry about election fraud because it's so rare. It is caught rarely. Yes. Murderers in Chicago are also caught rarely. It doesn't mean that they're not, murdering people. Those exist. Now, can we prove fraud? That is the question. And it's hard to do such a thing. The Democrats, though, with all this, will continue to push for essentially no voter ID, complete and utter voter fraud availability, I'll put it that way, with mail-in ballots and whatever else. We might see lockdowns because of COVID. Biden's been all about lockdowns for COVID ever since he has been running, and lockdowns are not good, folks. They cause more harm than they do good. And I think lastly, the last thing I want to cover is this whole thing with Kamala, because she's going to be your president. And really, neither one of them are going to be your president. It is the people behind them. And that's really what goes on. This election just shows me nothing more than the realities of how powerful the deep state, if you would, is. That is the fourth branch of government. That is the CIA, intelligence services, FBI. And with that, their propaganda outlet, the mainstream media. And it's quite sad. And on top of that, we have the tech censorship. And all this will only get worse. And there will either be a referendum on all of this, very hard, very solidly. And by the way, folks, this is all that's going on right now is very surprising, considering the votes that we have been seeing moving toward a more right-wing populism in other nations, such as Australia as well as England. We've also seen this to some degree in other European nations. So that is coming up and about because it's a referendum on globalism. And I see Joe Biden as a Jimmy Carter type administration. Of course, Joe said he's only going to run for one term anyways. But unfortunately, the Democrats, they have nobody. They just ran Joe Biden. I mean, Kamala Harris was one of the first to drop out of the primaries. They're going to try and run her as your president. And most of you, maybe if you don't listen to me, but most folks out there, I hate to say it because I'd hate to sound elitist or be elitist, but you're too dumb and gullible and you're just going to fall for it. Oh, she's a woman and she's of color. That's going to be the deal. And it's quite sad because it has nothing to do with improving American life, improving the quality of your children's life, your grandchildren's life, giving you a better standard of living. Minimum wage, federal minimum wage probably will go up. They'll probably try to have a push for $15 an hour at some point because, again, it's progressive. Instead of addressing the real issue, which is federal spending and growth and the fractional reserve banking system that we use, the Federal Reserve Bank, which is private, prints money out of thin air and decides arbitrarily what the percentage of interest rates are going to be. And folks, that causes all kinds of chaotic problems. And I think lastly, I'm going to say this. I had someone on my live show. I do a live show called TheEnds Justify the Memes. We did a Saturday show, which is unusual, but we had a guest over the on the other side of the Atlantic. And so we were making concessions for time. And I had someone in the comments talking about the deep state, the globalists, they got Donald Trump to trick the people to be in, to be the one to bring about the financial collapse. I don't think so. I think you're crazy. And trust me, I will entertain a conspiracy theory if it has some backing to it. I will at least entertain it. I'm not saying I will believe it, but that's just ridiculous. No, they hate Donald Trump. They wanted him out. And look, they decided to cheat to get him out. Whether that can be proven or not is, yet to be said. And it's going to be another 5-6 weeks before we probably know anything. I could be wrong on that, could end sooner than that, but I think that's the way it's probably going to go. It's going to be a matter of the courts, and I would hope that Trump would win this, but unfortunately, there is no way to know. He did win 70 million votes. There were, of course, 74 million for Biden, something like that. It shows us how closely divided our nation is, but again, maybe some of those votes in some of those areas were falsified. So that's just some thoughts on what a Biden presidency would be. Of course, I'll develop this some more as things go along over the weeks, and we'll see where the election stands. I will be doing a long-form video, maybe not today, but probably tomorrow for sure. And I guess, folks, that's pretty much all I have. So this has been AllMinucOne Quick Shots, and I wish you all well.